So obviously we are in a couple of days the draft will be 2 weeks away, right? I mean, we're creeping up on it here very very quickly and the draft is going to be right around the corner. So, we've talked before about what my priorities are for the first overall pick. We talked yesterday about some of the things to do with the second round and third round picks. So, this is how I prioritize my draft, okay? And yes, I understand best available player and all that kind of stuff. And, again, we've had 5 straight losing seasons and we can't figure out why. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But here's where I prioritize my draft from a positional standpoint, right? Yes, best player available could fall and this, that, and the other. But again, if Bijan Robinson is at 8, is he the best available player over anybody else we could pick? If Jalen Carter is there at 8, will the Falcons select him? Here's where I prioritize my draft. Let's start with edge. First and foremost, edge. Okay. I understand there's a lot of good cornerbacks and this, that, and the other. We'll talk about that in just a second here. But I have to sack the quarterback. And the one thing that I am big time deficient in is sacking the quarterback. And as you saw with the Philadelphia Eagles, you can't have too many guys that sack the quarterback. As you see with the San Francisco 49ers, you can't have too many guys that sack the quarterback. Where did the Eagles play in the final game? Oh, that's right. They were in the Super Bowl. Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, but San Francisco wasn't very good. They had Mr. Irrelevant at quarterback. Where'd they end up playing in the final? Oh, they were in the conference championship game? Oh, okay. Anyway, so you can't sack the quarterback enough. And this is why I have to sort out who's the best available player at edge. Now, I'll give you 2 exceptions to that rule. Okay? I'll give you 2 exceptions. CJ Stroud, Jalen Carter. If either or both of those guys drops the number 8, that would be the only other way that I would go. If CJ Stroud magically, and again, this is mythology and unicorns and rainbows, if he found a way to fall to number 8, I select him first and foremost. If Jalen Carter, who may be the most talented guy in the draft, regardless of position, is there at 8, and there's been conflicting reports. Would the Falcons take him? Would they not take him? I take Jalen Carter all day long if he's sitting there at number 8. Again, a disruptive force to pair with Grady Jarrett, and now I've got something. Now my edge is probably even freed up. Even if I don't have a top flight guy at edge, I can free up a guy to go disrupt and we get sacks that way. And Carter obviously is a guy who can disrupt everything on the defensive line. Outside of those 2 players, edge. Whether it's Van Ness, whether it's Tyree Wilson, whether it's Miles Murphy. Again, I don't care about what the name says on the back of the jersey. Get me the best available player at edge. BPA edge. Prioritize that. Get me another young first-round caliber pass rusher in here and do it. And I don't want to hear any nonsense about, well, if the Falcons draft this guy or that guy, they're reaching. Okay? Again, we explain this to you. If you're first-round talent, you are first-round talent. I don't care if you pick 4, 8, 12, 20, 32. Is TJ Watt first-round talent? Yes. Was he picked way too low? If you did that draft over again with TJ Watt, would he go higher? Yes. First-round talent is first-round talent. I don't care where you draft him. 8, 25, 30, whatever. Doesn't matter. You draft a guy who can impact your football team. So again, whether it's Nolan Smith, Keon White, there's going to be plenty of choices. They can sort out all the scouting and everything like that for them. Then I will prioritize cornerback next as far as positional goes. I want a young corner, a physical corner that can come in here and eventually partner up with A.J. Terrell. Now, look, I got no problem with Casey Hayward and seeing what he can do. And if you draft a corner high, maybe that guy does pair up with AJ and you move Casey Hayward to the slot, whatever. Or you play, a high draft pick in the slot. I don't care. But I do think that a young corner to eventually pair with AJ Terrell on the outside would be my second choice. Then offensive line. I don't care if it's guard, I don't care if it's center, or if it's even tackle. Because if Caleb McGarry doesn't work out, he's not on a long-term contract. And you can move off of him from very quickly. So if last year turns out to be his boom year and then everything else is bust around him, then again, I don't care if it's tackle, guard, center, maybe a guy who can play a little bit of both inside, outside. But I definitely think that more offensive line help young in the draft definitely helps. Then I'll say wide receiver, going out and getting ourselves. And again, I'm not prioritizing a first or second round wide receiver, but if you told me that, a Tillman or a Hyatt or somebody like that falls to the third round, okay, I could be on board with that. If you tell me that a third round pick was invested in a wide receiver, I got no problem with that. And then my final position, look, defensive tackle. You can't have enough defensive tackles on your football team. When you're rotating guys in and out and you want to build up depth and you want young guys, if there's a good young offensive or defensive tackle, I should say, that is falling in the draft, that's got a lot of upside to him, I don't mind spending high capital on one of those guys. Yes, I understand Marlon Davidson didn't work out, but again, you go down that same well. You can't have too many of those guys. No team in the NFL, no team in the history of the NFL said, we've got too much disruption on our defensive line. We have to get rid of some guys because we've got too many good players on our defensive line. That's never been uttered by a coach or a general manager or a fan ever in the history of NFL football. We've got too much disruption on our defensive line. Never been uttered before. Those words have never been put together in a sentence until I said it here on this podcast. It's the first time ever in the history of recorded audio that those words have been all put together at once. So edge player, first and foremost, number one. Then corner, offensive line, wide receiver, defensive tackle. That's my 5 priorities in order of where this team needs to be. Now, I'll obviously do a mock. I do my one and only mock draft that again, not what the pundits think, what if I'm the GM, what I'm drafting, okay? What I'm drafting. And again, maybe, the front office could listen to me a little bit more and maybe we'd have some of these things fixed. But anyway, we wouldn't have as many unicorns and stuff, I guess. But, again, we wouldn't have, we'd probably have our offensive defense line figured out. But anyway, who cares about all that kind of stuff? We got unicorns. But anyway, so with that, edge, corner, offensive line, wide receiver, defensive tackle. And I think the Falcons are in a great spot that they can just sit at number 8 and just let the draft unfold. I think 4 quarterbacks will be taken before the Falcons pick. So there's only 7 picks ahead of the Falcons. If there are 4 quarterbacks taken, that means probably Carter, Anderson, and 1 wild card pick is going to be selected. And you'll be able to just sit back and just watch and monitor the draft as far as let everything just kind of fall. I don't think the Falcons need to move back and all this. Again, no teams typically don't want to move up to number 8 that are in the middle of the draft. These things don't happen. It's great in theory to say, but usually these things don't really happen. You don't see many 9-1 types of trades in the NFL. That's why this was such a rare thing for the Bears and Panthers to swap those picks out. Jacksonville tried to, make a deal on their number 1 overall pick last year. Didn't work out. So just sit at 8, let the draft unfold, and let these good players just fall down to the Atlanta Falcons, and they'll have their pick of whatever type of position that they want to acquire. All right, after you've made Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery your first listen every day, make sure you make Locked On Sports Today your second listen. Biggest stories of the day, instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day available Odyssey, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts from.